So, some of you may not have met Rafiq before, so we're going to start off with a bit of introduction. Very simple, basic question. Tell us a little bit about your background and your journey before Media Prima.
Sure. So, I actually graduated with a degree in actuarial science, but I think 2 years into my degree, I realized that I like numbers a lot, but I don't like it that much. So, I thought, no, I'll pursue a career, something a bit different from what I actually studied. So my first job was actually in Maxis. I started off as a management associate in Maxis for about a year or so. Then I moved on to international business and eventually doing strategy for about a year. So after 4 years in Maxis, I got a phone call from this company called Groupon. So they just started in Malaysia and they were hiring quite aggressively. I thought at that point of time that it was an interesting sort of like opportunity for me because in Maxis, while I was doing well, I was more of an individual contributor. And I decided that I want to take a leap of faith into a new organization that's not only digital but at the same time will allow me to sort of like hone or test my leadership capabilities by leading a team. So it was quite a risky jump at that point of time. So I joined Groupon, was there for about 4 years or so. Eventually became the country head for Groupon Malaysia, and I think we grew quite fast, and it was actually quite a very, I would say, a lot of good learnings that came out of my career in Groupon. And after 4 years in Groupon, a bunch of us decided to leave to start our own startup. So we started this company called KFit. KFit is basically a gym pass where you just pay one fee and then you get access to multiple different gyms and studios in Malaysia. It grew quite fast actually. Within 7 months, we launched in 8 countries, 12 cities across Asia Pacific. So it was one of the most hardworking time for me. I worked probably 100 hours a week. Lost quite a bit of hair, and it was a really tiring journey, right? But in that 1 year, learned a lot and grew the business to become what it was, and eventually that business pivoted to what's called Fave at the moment. So Fave is basically an e-wallet, e-payment service that's currently available in Malaysia. After that, I decided to move to Media Prima because I thought it was an interesting opportunity. I felt that it was a sleeping giant. I had tons of assets and capabilities in the digital side. And just waiting to be unlocked. So that was what I was doing for the past 3 years or so in Media Prima.
I'm going to interrupt you
Sure.
here a little bit, Rafiq. Thank you so much for sharing that whole journey, the background, right, in a nutshell for all of us. I think as an Asian society, a lot of times, especially if you're a relatively youngster or millennial, it's always like, my parents told me to do this.
No.
How do you move from that place of being literally an employee, right? Now, it was a good career, stable job with Maxis, very reputable company, into going into becoming a founding team of something that has never been tried before with Groupon. What was that process that brought you from corporate to startup?
So when I told my parents about my decision to move, they were not very happy, to be honest. They felt that Maxis was a good company, it's a safe career. I mean, the path is pretty much set up, right? So why risk anything? So when I told them that my interview with Groupon was at the bungalow off of Jalan Gasing, they got even more worried because like, what company sets itself in a bungalow, right?
From KLCC to a bungalow,
to a bungalow, right, with a swimming pool. So it was quite a weird conversation with my parents. But eventually, I think they raised me in a certain way that they allowed me to make my own decision. So they grilled me, they asked me tons of questions, but they felt that they got convinced that I knew what I was doing. This was important for me, and they eventually supported it. So I guess it's a matter of I mean, my parents had a point of view as well, but I guess they raised me in a certain way where they allowed me to make decisions. They just wanted to make sure that I wasn't making a rash one. So once they were convinced, they gave their blessings. So it was all good. Yeah.
I have a question in my mind, and it's one word: why? Why from the security of that corporate job into something that was so unknown and risky?
I think at that point in time I was 27, 26. So realized that I could stay in Maxis, eventually go up the ranks and whatnot, or I could just take this leap of faith, join this company that was at that point of time was just about to explode and capture the imaginations of many Malaysians. So felt that opportunity was very rare. It would actually allow me to not only test or learn leadership capabilities at the same time, allow me to venture into this digital world where things that I felt where the future would be moving forward. So again, the opportunity was interesting because it allowed me to not only lead a team, but also sort of like run the business from pretty much from scratch and just grow it up, right? Not many opportunities would come that would allow me to do such a thing. So I felt that that was actually the right opportunity.
So in the process of literally nothing, that startup or Groupon, into leading the entire business in Malaysia, what were the key learnings that you gained along the way?
Sure. So I think one of the key learnings that we've had is that, again, my career at Groupon helped me build sort of like my, I would say, work mantras, right? So I have three basically mantras that I live by. First is control the controllables. I think it's quite important for us to know that there's some things that happens that might not be within our control, but most of the time we like to dwell and sulk about things that we sort of like can't control or can't influence. But I found out eventually that if you just focus on things that you can influence, focus on things you can control, or one piece at a time, no matter how small it is, eventually the bigger picture will take care of itself. And that has really helped me sort of like be operationally efficient by just focusing a lot of effort and time on things that we can actually influence and control. So that's one. Second one is start from the customer and go backwards. So in the end of the day, in any business that we run, customers are always king, right? I think we need to realize eventually the people that pays our salaries and pays the bills for our company are our customers. And no matter what happens, we have to prioritize them first. So one thing that I really learned is that don't make your problem the customer's problem. So the only thing you can change is yourself and your company. You can't change your customers, right? Customers tell you what they want. It's our responsibility to change or to adapt to ensure that we deliver what the customer wants. And that's very, very important in our journey to grow Groupon to what it was at the point of time. And the third mantra for me is really awesome people make awesome companies. In the end of the day, especially in the world of digital, our number one value proposition or asset are our people. It's there's no license, there's no big factories or whatever to protect our business, right? Whatever that we do, however fast we grow, and no matter what happens, the most important asset that we can ever have in an organization are the people. So I think it's important to invest in them, important to hire correctly, and important to build a very strong work culture. I think that has really helped us, go to where we are at the moment.
It sounds like all these years have helped you to crystallize these three learning points, right? So, but I want to kind of understand, because a lot of us here desire to grow our businesses, and it's not easy. I think we all know, from a 5 to 15 packs company to 500 and 5,000 is completely different. Right? So how do you transition wearing those kind of different hats, from being a startup owner to trying to figure out what it is that enables me or enables my business to scale?
Sure. So I think a lot of learnings that came out of that as well. When I first started at Groupon, I was leading a team of 6 people, right? So at that point of time, the management requirement that I had to perform is basically, you got to be a little bit more of a micromanager. You sort of like able to understand, what you need to do to motivate 6 people that you're managing, and sort of like groom them to be a very efficient and effective team. And eventually, when you move up, and Groupon, eventually, I was leading a team of 150 people. You can't do that to 150 people, right? You need to be able to trust other leaders in the organization to sort of like, cascade down or help you run the organization the way that it's supposed to be. So eventually, it's about adapting from being more of like a people manager, day-to-day operations, to become more of a person to influence other leaders in the organization to go down the same path and the same journey, and have them sort of like level up or scale up to be able to manage the teams accordingly to what we want as a leader. So that has really helped. I mean, it didn't go all perfectly from the beginning, right? I mean, when you go from managing 6 to managing 40 to managing 150, there are a lot of mistakes that we'll do along the way. But I think it's important to acknowledge whenever you make a mistake, learn fast from it, and quickly adapt so that you'll be able to run teams as effective as you can.
It's interesting that you said that word. A lot of us don't like that. It's micromanage, right? When you're saying that when you started with a team of 6, that it's okay. In fact, it's beneficial to micromanage. But then learning how to let that go, the larger your team becomes. And again, it's difficult, right? Because you started with that 6.
Yeah.
And you can't possibly know 150 people as intimately as you did with 6.
Yep.
So how would you describe your leadership style in general?
I think my style is, I would say I'm very adaptive. Different organizations, different teams require a different form of leadership or management. Again, it comes from the mantra of controlling the controllables, right? I think it's unfair to sort of like expect a team of 150 people to change and adapt to how I want to run the company. I think what's fairer is for me to be able to understand the requirements and the needs of the team and organization, and adapt myself towards what's required for the operations team, what's required for the sales teams, what's required for the customer service team and whatnot, right? Different teams have different challenges. They have different ways of doing things, different mindsets, and inherently different subcultures. And I think it's the responsibility of a leader to sort of like understand and be able to know how do you adapt, or how do you sort of like run different teams differently in a manner where which would make them a bit more effective or efficient.
That's interesting. Whilst you are adapting your leadership styles, do you find yourself always figuring out the right approach for different scenarios, or is it a try and see kind of approach?
It's always try and see, especially when you're running a company that's growing very fast from the ground up. You sort of like set up a team, you build it, and you think that, okay, this team should be run this way, and halfway along the way you realize it's not working out. So I think it's important to know when things are not working out. I mean, it's never easy or never fun to tell yourself that I did it wrong, right? I messed up the way I handled that situation, or I should have managed the team this way for the first 2 months or 3 months or whatever. But I think it's important to always look back at the results and how teams will react to the way you actually run the organization. And if it's not up to what you believe it should be, then you should change, right? So for me, I had to adapt. So I had to realize firstly, or admit that the initial style was wrong. I had to change, and eventually that's how I was able to sort of like customize certain management styles with certain teams and certain people.
I think a lot of us here, as we see our companies grow, we see a lot of high-stressed people. It is a high-stress environment when your organization is growing. So as a people leader, how do you help your team manage that stress? Okay. It's unavoidable.
Yep. I think this concept of work-life balance is, I think it's unachievable, especially if you're in an SME or if you're in a fast-growing company, right? And in this modern era where everyone has access to technology and phones and things like that, I mean, people can access you anytime. At 10 p.m., someone will give you a call or WhatsApp message to say, hey, this is what happened, what do we do? So I think that's why it builds up into a very stressful situation sometimes. But I believe that a strong work culture, a culture where strong performers are rewarded, where they always believe that there's a purpose to what they're doing. A team that does that would sort of like always overcome whatever stress that they have, right? So let's say they have a very bad day, but they understand what's the purpose, what's the goals or objectives of the organization. At the same time, understand what they need to do or why they're doing certain things or why they're actually stressed about it. Eventually, they will sort of like adapt and they will accept that, and they'll be able to sort of fuel them for the next days as well. So it's challenging. I mean, it's always a give and take, but in the end of the day, a strong performance-based culture where awesome performers are always rewarded in an environment where everyone's collaborative will always sort of like turn sort of like stress into a more fun approach as well. So that's how you find the balance. Yeah.
This noise, forgive me ladies and gentlemen, is reminding me how sometimes as business owners it can feel like this in your head as well, right? The constant, relentless drilling when you're worrying about so many different things, right? And I want to bring it back to ourselves, Rafiq, as leaders. So we see the stress in our people, but you were just sharing with us earlier on how when you were with KFIT, expanding to 8 countries, and it was a huge ambitious goal. I think the entire team, not for the lack of commitment or buy-in, went for that goal, but you still had to bear the cost of that cause, right? The goal. how do you as a leader manage yourself? You know, we talk about self-care
Yep.
and all of that. And you say probably lost a bit of hair and so forth.
I must admit, that was a very challenging period in my life, to be perfectly honest with you. Again, when you work 100 hours a week, it's very tough. You have very little rest. At the same time, you know, my schedule was all over the place. We'll usually have dinner at 10:30, 11 p.m. That's when all the shops already close. So, you know, what's left are like mamaks or whatever. So, you know, meals are not healthy. We don't have enough rest. And there's always, you know, stress all over, right? So self-care was important, but sometimes, you know, you just have to have that belief that whatever that you are facing is temporary. You know, if you really put in a lot of effort, if you understand what you're doing it for, what do you want to achieve, and you really believe that whatever effort that you do now will lead towards achieving those goals, that will actually push you through, right? So, like most organizations, there will be a period where you feel like you know, you're maybe quicksand or whatnot, right? No matter what you do, you know, things just don't get better. My advice or my view is that that always happens in a business. Just tough it out, right? You know, really have faith in what you're doing, have faith in your mission or what you want to achieve, and eventually, you know, once you get out of it, you believe that, you know, whatever that you did is totally worth it, right? But there's no sugarcoating it. Sometimes you just have to put in the hours, you just have to put in the work. If you really, really believe that what you're doing, you know, will lead towards something amazing in the future.
I want to talk a little bit about risk. Here we're speaking about how you have a vision, you need to buy in, you have to believe that the hard work is worthwhile to put in order to achieve this, right? But I think we can see from your track record of Groupon that, and then K-Fit and Fave and all that, a lot of that was groundbreaking in Malaysia, the scene. We didn't know whether that would work in our particular business environment. So as entrepreneurs and business owners here, right, you take an educated guess. You try and gather the data you can, the information you can, to inform yourself if this risk is worthwhile going into.
Yep.
But nothing is guaranteed. How do you get that sense on when to persevere and when to pull out?
Okay. So, I mean, I could tell you guys what happened to K-Fit, right? It's perfectly transparent and honest. So, we put our hearts and soul into this business, grew it to be, you know, very, very fast, 7 months, launched in 8 countries, you know, about 5,000 different gyms and studios were on board. We had close to 1 million customers. Things were growing very, very fast. But at the same time, it was a very high cash burn business. We were subsidizing a lot of the experiences our customers were having. And I think, you know, in the end of it, after 9 months or 10 months, we realized it's just not going to work out. The business model is broken. You know, unit economics just doesn't look good. And no matter how you slice and dice the data, we realized that the future is bleak if we continue down that path, right? So, you know, here we are, you know, 10 months after doing, you know, after starting this entire journey, you know, grew really, really fast, you know, hired close to 100 people. And then now we had this inflection point whereby we realized that if we don't do something about this, something drastic, you know, we're just going to burn all the cash we have in the bank account and close shop within 6 months, right? So we had only 6 months of runway of cash that's available left in the bank account. Investors were in, but at the same time, you know, if you continue burning the cash we will continue to burn, no other investors will give us more money, right?
And a lot of it is your own money as well.
It's our own money as well,
you have a
yes.
family to take care
Correct,
of.
yes, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of us put our entire savings into the business, so that's the reality. So, it was a very difficult decision to make, but at the month number 10, we decided that, okay, this K-Fit thing, awesome, but not going to work out, right? So, we still have some cash in the bank account. Let's pivot and let's totally change the business model while we still can. If we do it a month later, we wouldn't have enough time to actually sort of like sort it out. So that's when an opportunity came up. We managed to acquire Groupon businesses in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, and flip the business from K-Fit into Fave, which is what it is at the moment. So, you know, focusing more towards the e-wallet business, the payments business, back to the core of what we knew how to do very well, you know, based on our experience in Groupon. So, very tough decision. A lot of the people or the really, really good people in our team decided to leave because they didn't sign up to, you know, work in Groupon 2.0, right? They wanted to work in K-Fit, right? That's why they joined, right? So But we had to make that decision because if we don't, then 100 people would run out of jobs. We would have all of our savings gone, and that wouldn't be a situation where we want to be in. So very tough decision, but a decision that we had to make regardless. And I would say that that's one of the toughest things that we've ever done.
I noticed that you used one word very often in the last couple of minutes, and that's the word we. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, one person has that vision of an ideal of future that could be, right? But you use this word we very often, and I'm thinking that behind all these very hard decisions is not just one person but a team, right? Is that true?
Definitely. I think KFIT, a bunch of us decided to do this together. It was, of course, our founder, which is Joel Neo. I'm sure some of you are familiar with him. He's sort of like the face of the organization and whatnot. But the way we run the organization is very much more of like a team-based organization, right? Everybody will be able to give the opinions or their sort of like views on how do we move forward or how do we run things, right? So we had a very strong core team. Everybody believed and trusted each other, and I think everyone was transparent about how they were feeling or how they believe things should be done. So that was important to us because we believe that we all complement each other, and that's why we were a strong team, because each of us had something to bring to the table, to sort of like grow the company forward. So which is why whatever we did was always a unanimous decision between the entire team.
So it wasn't just a collection of individuals who thought the same way, but a myriad of unique, different individuals, different perspectives, and you could challenge each other.
Definitely, yeah.
Question assumptions and all that.
Definitely, I think we have this idea where in the startup, things are fun. You have like a foosball table or whatever and things like that, right? But behind the scenes, and I'm sure most of you are very familiar with this, is it's always that some days where you just don't agree with the other guy, and things can get very
violent.
I wouldn't say violent, but very
heated.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've shouted at a fellow co-founder before, right? And likewise, he has shouted at me. So these things happen, but I think we have to get past that. Once the emotions settle down, then everybody needs to sort of like be an adult and realize, okay, fine, we have screamed at each other. So what do we do now, right? And everyone and all of us will focus on things that we can actually action upon. So again, control the controllables, right? Fine, things happen, we all agree, but once you come down, what is it that we need to do, right? We'll all build an action list, and we'll go ahead and do it, right? And after that, at that night, we'll go yum cha together. It's fine, it's all good, because in the end of the day, that's. I mean, you got to get past the emotional stuff that you do, and always focus on the bigger purpose.
Excellent. So now that you have a very strong team at Media Prima Digital, I'm sure it's at least a couple of hundred staff force.
We are about 300 right now.
About 300, and you have a very strong management team along with you, right? What do you foresee are the current trends of the digital business?
I think what's trending very, very fast now is really the implementation of AI and IoT and machine learning. I think that will hit us sooner than later. I'm sure some of you are really dabbling into these new forms of technologies. So are we. I think we're leveraging a lot on AI and machine learning to sort of run the data that we have and perform recommendations of content for a lot of our readers and users. So those are the things that I believe would make things a lot more efficient and allow us to sort of like be better at what we do. So I think within the next 1 year or so, these things are going to be very, very prevalent in our lives. And I think if you have an opportunity to learn more about it or to sort of like utilize these technologies, please do so, because it's really it's maturing very, very fast.
I'm assuming as well in Media Prima, deep pockets. You have a massive budget for data collection, analysis.
Well, 3 years ago we had very deep pockets. I'll be very honest again, very transparent. Right now I think media business is getting hit really, really bad. It's not only us. Any Malaysian media company is feeling the heat at the moment, right? So I think we need to be very smart about how we utilize our cash. Back then, we used to be a massive cash generator. Right now, not so much, to be perfectly honest. So I think, but we still believe in the business. We believe in what we need to do to move forward and to exist in the new world where digital is going to be primarily the medium where everybody will be in. And I think we need to be very smart about how we get there. So we are making correct investments. We are putting in the money on where we believe will garner us the biggest results. But at the end of the day, we don't have unlimited funds, right? So we need to be able to prioritize. And that's how we make decisions. We look at things that will deliver the biggest impact, and we prioritize funds and resources to achieve those goals.
I think a lot of SMEs have very similar questions, right? Everyone's telling us about how data is so important. You need data to make decisions. You need data to try and have that crystal ball and see future trends and all that. But getting data is expensive. Analytics is expensive. You talked about AI, IoT, all the future digital trends are also expensive. How do you balance that, from as an SME, knowing that these things are important for your future, but cash burner, like you said, right?
So I think the beauty about how technology is also moving at the moment is that, and this is a little secret, is that there's a lot of things available for you for free. You just have to really, really look very hard for it, right? Things like analytics services and whatnot. There are many available out there that offer their service for free. Of course, when you want things a bit more advanced, you got to pay a premium on top of it. But most of the time, you don't need those advanced stuff until later. So look really hard, and you'll be able to see that there are many technologies available out there at the moment that you'll be able to utilize at a fraction of a cost or pretty much free. There are a lot of sharing-based technologies out there that just want people to grow and whatnot, right? So there are many of these type of tools available. So my view is leverage off of that because again, it's free. You gotta eventually, when you feel the need to upgrade to a more premium version, make the case for that. But I think as of now, don't be afraid. Utilizing technology doesn't have to be expensive. There are many ways for you to be able to leverage off of what's free or what's can be available at a fraction of the cost.
So it's about putting in that enough that maximizes your investment to guide your business.
Yep.
And also I think for a lot of us, again, this is why we do all these networking sessions, right? Because sometimes to figure it out on yourself can be lonely. Like, how do I start? Where do I go? Where do I even try and navigate this whole world? When you say free stuff, where do I even find free stuff, right? And it's about leveraging of each other, networking, helping and supporting each other as well. So in closing today, Rafiq, if you could give one piece of advice to entrepreneurs, emerging business owners, SME leaders today, what would it be?
Okay, so I think when you run your own business, every day is very busy. You always feel that you're swamped, right? Too many things to do, not enough time. I think that's very common. But my advice would be, sometimes just take a step back and really understand what's urgent and what's important. And what's important to me is what things that you do that can generate the biggest impact, right? So it's always about ROI of your time. So whatever that you invest in your time in, whatever you want to work on yourself, has to be able to deliver the maximum returns for your business. So there are a lot of things that are urgent, right? Paying your electricity bills is also urgent, right? All these things are urgent, but be able to really take a step back, understand what's important by definition of whatever actions that you do that can generate the biggest impact to your business. And that's what you should prioritize all the time. Because unfortunately, we only have 24 hours in a day and there's just too many things to do. Right? So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much, Rafiq. That was very illuminating. I think I learned so much as well.
Thank you very much.